Hello and welcome to Solidarity, the Resource Center's podcast at UCSC. The purpose of Solidarity is to uplift the voices and actions of students who work at the resource centers or with student organizations. I'm Mark. I use he, him pronouns. I am an intern with the ERC who will be hosting today's episode.
And I'm Yu Yao, and I will be co-hosting this episode today with Mark, and I use he, him pronouns.
Hi, my name is Laura Galanos. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a programs intern at the Asian American Pacific Islander Resource Center, and I identify as a Chinese American transracial adoptee.
My name is Egypt. I'm a second year, going to be third year, and I'm at the ARC Resource Center, which kind of stands for African American Resource and Cultural Center, and my pronouns are she, her.
Hello, my name is Mark Yang. I use he, him, his pronouns. I am currently a media outreach intern at the Ethnic Resource Centers, as well as one of the hosts for the podcast. This might be weird for some of y'all because, I haven't been in this capacity or this side before. Anyways, some identities, BIPOC, I'm a transfer student, Asian American Chinese.
My name is Jasmine Toledo. My pronouns are she, her. I am a lead intern at the Women's Center, and I am Latina, and I'm also a first-gen college student.
So my name is Mayreen Rodriguez. I use they, them, she, her, ella, ellas, and I work at the Women's Center, and I'm actually a lead intern for it. I also identify with being a queer Latinx individual.
Well, my name's Esmeralda Ruiz, and I work at El Centro, the Chicanx Latinx Ethnic Resource Center. I'm a student program coordinator there, and I use she, her pronouns.
Hello, my name is Sara Delgado, or Sarah. I use she, her pronouns. I'm an incoming third year UCSC student. I am a human bio major, and I work at El Centro, the Chicanx Latinx Resource Center. I am a student program coordinator, and I identify as Mexican American, Latina, Salvadorian.
Hola everyone, my name is Alejandro Anguiano. My pronouns are he, him, él. I'm one of the interns at the Cantu Center, and my position there is programs and advocacy. And oh man, when it comes to gender, I'm actually a transgender male. Yay me!
My name is Tani Henningsen. I use she, her pronouns. I am Konkao Maidu. I was a psychology major, Oaks affiliate, and a lead intern for the American Indian Resource Center.
Please note that the opinions and views expressed in today's episode are of the individuals and do not necessarily reflect the views of the UCSC Resource Centers.
Today's episode is titled Resource Centers Rewind 2022. It's the third year of pandemic in which all of our lives were changed. For the resource centers, we were met with new challenges balancing the pandemic and the changing restrictions. Like last year, we're joined with guests from each of the resource centers here at UCSC to discuss their experiences working with their respective community and the resource centers they worked at, and share some takeaways that they've learned from this year as well as their expectations and excitement for upcoming events next academic year.
So what initially inspired you to work at your specific resource center? What work were they doing that made you think, maybe this is a place that I would like to work at? And what factors inspired you to continue your work at that specific resource center?
So what inspired me to work at the RC is finding a place of community that can be diverse and supportive, because as a transfer student, it was very daunting coming to UCSC. I was like a third year and COVID, is still prevalent. So just wanting a space that can be safe and I could learn from others and be around diverse people was definitely the appeal to the job when I saw the email about the opportunity to work at APERC. After interviewing with the pro staff, I could tell they were really passionate and had a really amazing mission and vision for APERC. So that's what made me want to work at APERC. And then what's inspired me to keep working here for my final year at UCSC is definitely the people. Everyone in the ERC space is so passionate and so caring and supportive. And yeah, it's a really rewarding job, and it's a privilege to be able to work with such amazing people.
I was actually referred by one of or my sister who also worked at the Ethnic Resource Center space, because I was a recent transfer student into UCSC, and I was trying to like acclimate and trying to find community, as well as I wanted to become a little bit more involved on with student life on campus. So I thought that would have been a nice combination of the two interests, and it ended up being a perfect fit, I personally think.
So I joined the Women's Center in 2020 when I was a first year, and I was initially drawn to the space because of their efforts to uplift marginalized voices. And I'm super passionate about supporting and empowering others, and I'm super passionate about empowering women of color. So I knew that the space was perfect for me. And now that I'm a rising third year, I was inspired to continue my work at the Women's Center because of the impact our programming has on students. And I really got to see that this past year. And I'm also looking forward to highlighting more experiences within marginalized communities that should be at the very forefront of our minds.
So I've always been interested in intersectional feminism because I feel like a lot of the feminism that is portrayed is very cis white woman dominated. And I feel like the term woman has so many different definitions. There's not just like one way to look at it. So the fact that like the Women's Center at UC Santa Cruz, like the mission statement was for all women identifying people, kind of made me interested in wanting to be like, okay, so like what does that mean to this resource center, and how can I like help expand upon what that means? So before actually coming to UC Santa Cruz, I made sure that there was like a resource center for women. As a woman identifying individual, I like wanted to see if I would be welcome, because although I don't prefer she, her pronouns, I know that I will always be kind of viewed as a woman because I am feminine, I present feminine. I want to help others that maybe feel like I do, that is like, you know, doesn't necessarily identify with the term woman, but will always be seen as a woman. So I was interested with that. And the reason why I stayed is because I love the work that we did last year. Last year was my first year at the Women's Center. There was so many great events that I can think of, like the Take Back the Night event series and the whole Sisters Not Sisters event. You know, I want to continue cultivating that community of women identifying people. And the work last year was so promising that I just want to keep up that good work and even try to like amplify it a bit more.
My first real exposure to El Centro was when I came on campus last year during my second year, because my first year was the COVID year, so I really wasn't like exposed to anything on campus. And when I came on campus, that was like those were like the first events I went to, and I really enjoyed them. But then after that, like my schedule kind of got a little bit busy. But then in winter quarter, I was looking for a job, and I had followed them on Instagram, and I saw that they were hiring. And honestly, the timing was kind of just perfect. And like in the back of my mind, though, I was like, oh, let me apply, but I don't think they're going to choose me. Like, I don't really know why I thought that. I think it was just my insecurities. But like, I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm qualified. Like, I don't know if I'm good enough for it, but let me just apply and see what happens. And then as time went on, I was like, wow, I actually kind of really want that job. Like, because I was remembering how like the events were for me and how I enjoyed them, and like seeing how other students were affected as well, and just how they were able to connect with the community. I was like, oh, this is something I do want to be a part of. And then I was offered the job, and honestly, I was surprised, but I was also really happy. And yeah, just like remembering how they are able to connect so well with the students, I was like, this is what I want to do. And that's also what has encouraged me to continue.
Well, actually, I never thought that I would be working at the Cantu. Actually, when I first started, uh, prior to coming to the university, I was already going through facing a huge barrier before I even stepped on campus. And I was actually connected through a friend of mine on Instagram where I put, "Oh, I'm going to UC Santa Cruz, Jamie," and they connected me to Kai and Travis, the director at the time, and Dr. Hernandez, Dr. Salas, Dr. J, and they, she put us in an email, and that's how it initially started. And like I said, I was going through this really like silly, messed up barrier that still actually popped up again this quarter. And through reaching out to them, from them advocating for me, from fighting and fighting, and them seeing how involved and what the things that I've done previously at because I'm also a transfer student, and them seeing like, oh my gosh, like this person, they even asked me, we really would like for you to apply. We really don't hire, income, like first years incoming, and we think that you would be a perfect candidate. And I was like, okay, why not? And I applied, and I ended up getting the position. And I feel like the work that I've done at the Cantu has really reflected the things. It's almost like these barriers that I've faced and that I've seen other students go through. I put it into the work that I do there, being the programs and advocacy, and that's really helped me to not only help the community around me and students, but it's also given me the freedom to dream and to be supported by individuals that really, really are mindful of not my own professional growth, but as me as a student. And you can see that with the work that I've done there, and that's why I continue to work to wanted to reapply, and not only when I leave, be able to come back and continue to help as in any possible way as I can still here at the Cantu.
Now that we're seeing COVID restriction easing and the campus coming out of quarantine, how has this process affected your student experience or resource center experience?
My student experience and my ARC experience has been affected by the COVID restrictions and the release of it. Since it was my first year being on campus as a second year, I got to experience things through Zoom and just hyper in-person and online events, which was kind of different. Not that it was difficult. And then just being connected with the resource centers made everything easier because I had access to all of the social events, and it made it easier to see people, my peers, and just view different things on campus that I wouldn't possibly had a chance to do before.
When I first joined the ERC space, everything was so remote. So I obviously didn't have a total experience, understanding of what that space was going to be like. But because I came back in winter quarter of this past year, and that was a really exciting and amazing experience. Having classes be back in person again, as well as also meeting a lot of the ERC folks in person. So I feel like that was super beneficial for my overall student experience, especially since I was wrapping up my undergrad part of my life. So I thought it was a nice total picture wrap around, ooh, I got the full experience. I am good. I am happy with it.
This is a weird question because COVID's for the past how many years? 3 years? 4 years? It's we're at home. I started school my first year all online, and half of my second year as well, and even in this job position online. And then the next thing you know, it's hey, we're moving in person. And as a student, I started classes online I go on this big campus and the first thing that I'm doing is like, where the heck are all my classes? Where can I find like the things that I need? Who are these people? I don't know I don't know anybody. As a student, as like just a regular person on campus, I think that was difficult trying to process and like find my way through. But at the same time, it's like kind of exciting. It's really exciting. I was so excited as a STEM student. You have a lot of lab courses. So it's all interactive. And if you don't have those lab courses and you take them online, now that I've taken them in person, I'm like, I could never go back to online. They're so fun to do. And so I'm excited to see everybody on, in person, interacting, seeing the campus all lively. But as a resource center and working at the resource centers, I can say that these past few years have been really impactful, both negatively and positively, just because I feel like we don't see a lot of folks coming into the offices as much. I would love to see folks that identify as me and that have the same experiences as me coming into the office and being like, hey, who are you? What are you doing here? And I get to explain to them like what I do, how I'm there to help them. And just overall getting to know people, seeing people's faces. We have put on like events and stuff, and we have seen a good turnout, and we have seen people wanting that interaction, wanting the in-person events and programs. When starting this new year in person, I'm super excited to see how many folks come through and the happiness that we're probably going to see as well starting the new academic year is going to be exciting.
It was a little anxiety inducing at first, like holding in-person events, because there was it hadn't been done for such a long time. So it was kind of like, not only with how do I interact with someone that's not through a computer screen, but my own anxiety about getting sick and all that. I remember the first times I had in-person events, I would be taking a COVID test right after to make sure that I was safe. But as time went on, it was really nice to have events in person to actually kind of connect with someone, because I feel like online, as much as you try to connect with people, it doesn't always come through. Whereas in person, you're oh my God, I'm talking with you and I can feel your emotions, and it's not through a screen. So that was really, really valuable to me. And I was also able to meet so many people. I know we had Spring Sly at the Women's Center, and, just being able to interact with people that work in other resource centers and share our experiences was so nice. So I hope we can continue to do in-person events.
It was a complete huge change when the COVID restrictions lifted. It really transformed my experience because I was a transfer student. So my first year on campus was entirely online. And I always say that this last year really felt like my first year, because I felt like I had missed out on so much of the undergrad experience by being online. So going into this year, I was like, okay, I have to cram as much experience as I can into this 1 year, 4 years worth of undergrad I'm putting into this final year. And I think working with the ARC has really helped with that. I was lucky to be able to do a ton of amazing things and meet so many amazing people and just do so much through the internship. So yeah.
What are some of the main challenges that you face when trying to set up or plan events? Is there any difference from last year?
I think a main challenge this year was shifting from virtual to fully in-person programming. Fall and winter quarter for us were primarily virtual. So, we were used to the virtual format and Zoom and having events over Zoom. So there was a lot of learning and adjustments to be made in preparation for spring quarter. And it was kind of a quick turnaround. I know during that time it was like we weren't sure if we would be back in person. It was kind of up in the air, so there's a lot of different adjustments to be made. But it was super exciting to like take on that challenge with the team and like see each other in person finally. And we grew so much independently and as a group together because of that experience.
It's interesting because during Zoom, people would talk about Zoom fatigue. Oh my God, how do we, reach out? How do we talk to students? And I think I feel like and we couldn't get, it was like trying to get people in, like, we need you to want you to sit down a couple more hours on Zoom. But now, now that it's in person, we literally have reached out, like gone out to the campus, talked to students, promote the heck out of, our center and, getting people to come. And there's a lot of people that are coming, but we're running out of resource. Like I think one of the biggest that I've seen and that I've observed is money. Getting access to the money to be able to put these events. These events cost money, and it's I've mentioned this to my team. It's like it's almost like the university wants us to put on these lavish, really cool events, but yet they only give us like $5. Like, like in what world? Where? No. It's and I think that's the part where it's really frustrating because we have the intentions to do these really amazing things, yet we don't have the resource. Like, there's always no money. Why is there no money for these resources that help quote unquote marginalized communities? Well, these universities bank off of individuals like us being here. So where's the resources? If you want us to help these communities, we'll provide us a resource so we could help and continue to provide access. But how can we do that if there's, again, no resource?
There was a lot of difficulty just starting things. For 1 year, the centers and El Centro were all online and had programs online. And then you move into the next year and it's like, okay, we're finally getting out of COVID. Let's focus on planning in-person events. And so there was kind of like a hiccup in between, just trying to figure out, okay, we now plan these events. We first planned them in person, then we moved online. And now we're trying to figure out how to get people's energy and interest back in these in-person events. So when I moved first into this position, we had first a lot of changes. We have a new director now. We had someone who wasn't in the office at the time due to some personal issues and then moved back in person. So there was a lot of changes that I wasn't used to. And I was like, okay, trying to meet new people and try to figure out how my work schedule was going to work and how I was going to do things. And then once we started, I think starting winter quarter, we got our new director. And so everything was like, okay, this is how we're going to do things from now on. Let's try to keep up, the pace. And the people that work with me at El Centro and everybody else, we were super accommodating. We were just amazing in general because we were all asking each other for support, questions, answers, direction, guidance. And that was something that I was lacking on, I feel like. I didn't have the answers to those questions when some people asked me, or I didn't have the guidance skills to lead them in the right direction when planning these events. So that's something that I had to quickly learn in fall quarter, entering winter quarter.
This year definitely posed some unique challenges. We started hosting in-person events in the winter quarter, and everything with COVID was still kind of up in the air. We were never sure if we could actually host events in person or if we should do online or have an alternative ready. So that made planning a little bit difficult. We also had to try to find a balance of over advertising and over promoting our events because we wanted people to come to our events, but at the same time, we wanted everybody to be safe and we wanted to follow COVID restrictions and not have too many people attending. So some of our events, we like hit capacity and had a ton of people, and some of our events, we maybe were under attended, but it was our first in-person events and in nearly like 2 years. So with whoever showed up, we were just happy to be in community again.
What were some highlights, events you hosted, personal, etc., that you were the most proud of this past year?
Definitely the program I was most proud of that I personally put on was my first solo program during winter quarter. It was called Conversations with Asian American Transracial Adoptees. And it really was able to create a lot of visibility and awareness for a really underrepresented group, transracial adoptees, which are children of color that are adopted by parents of European descent. I was able to meet 2 amazing mentors in the process because I had 2 like actual adults who were in academia who identified as TRA come and speak about their experiences, Hing Potter and Rebecca Hurtis. So that was awesome to have them, and just seeing the TRAs that attended feel so connected and supported, some for the first time, feeling that sense of community was really rewarding. That definitely was a highlight, and I was really proud of myself because I did basically the whole program by myself. So that was really, I was really proud of that.
Highlights. So I guess like kind of still with that previous response, like a major highlight, I guess, for this past year was to definitely being back and integrated in person, because I feel like I got to like re-experience and like fully experience that undergrad, like college life again. That's just on the personal side. I guess with more so like highlights for working at the Ethnic Resource Centers might have been like working on the podcast. That was definitely one major highlight, especially like pre versus post, like coming back into person. Last year, we did a lot of topics and we definitely covered a lot, but I feel this past year or this more recent last year compared to the year before that, we were able to like dive deeper into like student issues. Not saying the issues previously weren't important or anything, they definitely were, but I guess we were able to like get a little bit more niche with our topics. And also, I guess the whole like execution of how we produced and made all the episodes became a little bit more like fine-tuned and everything. So that was really exciting and definitely more of a highlight. So yeah. Okay.
The team knows I have so many different favorite events. Like I can ramble on and on about each of them, but our Take Back the Night series was incredible. We got to invite Chanel Miller, which is super, super exciting and inspiring. And then a personal highlight for me was leading our Sister Solidarity programming series. So this series is like typically held in winter, but this past year we extended it into spring quarter because of a lot of exciting ideas that we had for in-person programming. And within the series, we held a lot of diverse and eye-opening conversations surrounding topics like abolition, body positivity, poetry, social criticism, and so much more that I loved how each event empowered those who could relate to those topics and conversations, and also like how we created those safe spaces for people who wanted to be more educated or who didn't, undergo those experiences that we talked about.
So it was my first year of college last year. I just finished being a freshman, I guess. So like surviving college and getting such a cool internship are definitely like the highlights, and continuing on that internship. It was really hard at first. I got a lot of imposter syndrome when I first started working at the Women's Center, because I was like the youngest. Like I was like the only freshman in the team. So I was a bit intimidating, but like not because so sorry about that. Not because the the fellow interns were intimidating. It was just me kind of getting in my head, like, oh, I'm not good enough. Like, I'm literally like not even 18. Like, you know, like I'm not going to reach those like expectations that people have. But once I got out of that mindset, I started enjoying it so much more and like feeling like, yes, I am a valuable contributor to this team and I have input, and people, not only am I learning from everyone, but people can learn from me too. So once I got out of that like self-deprecating mindset, I definitely grew a lot and was able to like be better at my work and what I was doing. I was holding myself back, and I had a lot of talks with my fellow interns that really helped me get out of my head. An event that I was like blown away by was the Chanel Miller Q&A. That was incredible. I was part of the Take Back the Night community. So the fact that I was able to ask her like a question was amazing. And we had such a good turnout. I think like at the height of the Zoom, it was through Zoom, at the height of the event, there was 150 attendees, which is incredible. Like that to me is still insane when I remember that. And I think also for the Women's Center, we had been working so hard on this event with CARE and with DOS that like when it finally came together and it happened, it was like this moment of joy. I was at the Women's Center when the event was happening, and I just remember like as soon as like we like all closed our laptops, everyone that was at the Women's Center that worked on the event just kind of hugged each other because it's like, oh my God, we did it. It went well. People cared enough to come. So it was such a relief and like a very proud moment.
I would say like event-wise, definitely the event I co-led spring quarter, because spring quarter was my first quarter working. And I was actually the co-lead on Despedida, which was our big like graduation event. And I was working on it all quarter. And honestly, like, it was kind of stressful at times just because it is such a big event. And I feel like there is like I put a lot of pressure on myself. But finally, like doing the event and seeing how it turned out and turned out well, like that was honestly like a huge accomplishment for me just because like when I started working on it, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do it. And I had like a lot of doubt in myself. And then I guess more like in my personal life, I guess like I don't really know. I guess just because I didn't really have time last quarter because I was working, and then also I'm in an org, and then with school, I think my highlight in terms of that is that I was just able to juggle all that like well, because that was like a something I was afraid of too. Like I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do like all three of those things and actually like do them all well. And I think I was able to do that, and that was something I was like kind of like I was like, wow, I actually did it. And yeah, I'm happy that I was able to do that.
So I talked about this a little bit in the pod last year. I very briefly was like, keep your eyes out. I might be hosting my very own event. And I actually did get to do that this year. So it ended up being our very first event that we held in person in nearly 2 years. And the event that I came up with was a coffee event, and it was focusing on sustainability and ethicality in third wave coffee. And we had like a whole espresso setup on the patio with syllable coffee. It was like a whole cafe vibe, and it was really so much fun. And more than anything, I'm just proud of myself for being able to see this event through from like the concept all the way down to the end result and just like see it come to fruition. So that was a really big moment for me. And then another event that I'm really proud of was Indigifest. This is one of our annual events that we host every year, and it's like pretty big scale event for us. And we had lost our director, Dr. H, in January, and we really weren't sure if we were going to be able to pull such a big event off by ourselves and in such a short period of time. But we have our lovely program coordinator, Gemsy Ortiz, and the rest of the team. Shout out Gemsy. And the rest of the team, and we all really pulled together and worked our butts off, and we did it. And I was one of the MCs for Indigifest, and I had to get up on the mic on the stage at the Quarry Amphitheater in front of everybody. And public speaking used to be a really huge challenge for me. when I first started working as an intern, but just the last couple of years here has really helped me overcome that. And I feel like IndigiFest was a turning point, and it really symbolized me finally overcoming that public speaking fear and like coming out on the other side and feeling like I could do anything now. So those two events really were like the highlight of my undergrad, but also I feel like I learned so much in them that I'll take with me in my personal life that I'm really proud of.
What are some personal takeaways that you've learned this year that you would like to apply for next year?
For me personally, when working at the ARC is one of like kind of the more little resource centers. So we got to work together personally, and we got to kind of hear each other's opinions and voice kind of without having being super professional and uptight. We really got to know each other, and it just like helped me know that when it's easier to work together when you kind of get to know each other and listen to each other's experiences, it's better overall. And I just want to take that into next year, becoming a lead intern. And something else that I kind of learned over this year was just that quality is kind of better than quantity. Sometimes our events had less people, but when those people truly engage in the things that we are doing, it makes it more fun.
Some personal takeaways are definitely learning to not overextend myself and ask for help. Something I've learned throughout the year working at APERC and with other people at the ERC is just everyone's here to support you and wants you to succeed, even if they're not directly in your ERC or in your resource center. They're here to help. So being able to ask for assistance, especially for me, I'm not super strong when it comes to tech. So being able to ask others to like, hey, can you make this Zoom link for me? Or hey, can you manage the Zoom for my program? Because that's like really stressful.
Yeah.
Like sharing a screen, like who knew how stressful that would be in front of like 20 people. So I have a whole new respect for professors who host online classes. But yeah, asking for help and honestly communicating your boundaries with your supervisors or just the people you work with. It's really easy for me, at least, to, like I said, overextend myself, take on too much. And since this work is very emotionally draining, it could be a lot for sure. I like to, make sure my programs are the best they can be, and that can result in me burning out and not having great balance. So yeah, being able to set boundaries and communicate what I can or what I do and don't have capacity for is definitely something I want to take into next year so I can, yeah.
I think this past year I learned really like what goes into planning an event and all the things you have to consider. So I think going into like the future when I do lead more events, I can keep like those things in mind, and also maybe we can learn from not really mistakes, but just like things that we could have considered more in past events. And use that knowledge in the future with future events and just to make them better. And then I guess I would apply kind of the same logic to other aspects of my life, like school. Like I can use my past experiences and like see what worked and didn't work and use that in the future to hopefully be better.
What are your hopes for future events?
Some events that I definitely want to put on next year are more not environmental, oh my gosh, outdoor events for BIPOC or Asian American Pacific Islander Swana folks, because I put on a BIPOC hike with my fellow APERC intern Hana and POCSC intern Azarelli in the spring, and that was a really, really fun in-person program to do, and a lot of the participants expressed how grateful they were to be in nature with other people of color, since it is a very white dominated space. And Santa Cruz has such a beautiful environment, so it deserves to be explored. And yeah, I want to do more events like that, maybe like a rock climbing event at Pacific Edge or something along those lines, I think could be really fun. Oh, another event that I think would be really amazing to put on is a mental health event. APERC actually got a grant to do a specific mental health event next year. So even if I'm not putting it on, I think it would be amazing to see more events like that centered around like affinity groups. So that would be very exciting.
Yes, actually, we're working on the second annual Cutie BIPOC orientation that was actually created through my experiences at the university. That I said, hell no! Like, if I could prevent anything and anything, like, can we do our version of what it would look like to have an orientation that's just geared towards Cutie BIPOC? That is hand holding, that has empathy, that has honesty. And this year, the previous intern director, they were able to. We applied for a grant and we got a grant for X amount of years. So now we're hosting the second annual event. So hopefully y'all can come out. And I'm really looking forward to this orientation because again, it's a space where we're going to be able to, it's coming from holistic healing, hand holding, again, affirming these incoming freshmen and then transfer students who hold different identities, whether it's parenting and or X, Y, and Z, and letting them know you belong here and this is why you belong here. But that is one of the biggest events that I'm really proud of. That is led by students and being worked by Cutie BIPOC interns, and I'm really excited that that's something that I'm going to leave. That years from now, hopefully it continues to grow big, and know that from the experience that I experienced, hopefully no longer students can have to go through those barriers.
I'm so excited with thinking about El Centro, the future, and how we can help students through our programs and events. I definitely want to still continue doing something in regards to Latinas in STEM related programs where we can help our Chicanx Latinx population on campus, because when you try to see the Chicanx Latinx students in STEM classes, you see them. I see them, they see me. However, when trying to reach out and when trying to get together and start this community, it's very difficult because STEM courses or just STEM in general can be super duper isolating. And you tend to isolate yourself even more when you're starting the quarter, when it's picking up, basically. And then on top of that, sometimes reaching out and getting help as a Latinx, Chicanx person, you're just like, okay, how should I start? Where do I see myself being represented in these classes, and how do I get the help I need? So that is where I hope to build a bridge in between the two, as someone who's working at El Centro and also someone who is taking those STEM courses.
What are your hopes for the future given what you have learned from this past year? And for the students who graduated, what will you take with you from your experience working with the resource centers?
Yeah. Well, next year I kind of hope we have more events in person and that we can kind of do more with the other student bodies on campus. That was kind of fun when we have more people come together. Like when we did Black Day, it was just a whole bunch of everyone together and having fun. I would like to do more of that next year. And next year I kind of would just like to explore campus more. I don't know. I think Santa Cruz is really beautiful.
My hopes for my future, since I'm graduating out of the Ethnic Resource Center as well as UC Santa Cruz, my main takeaway, I guess, that will be taking with me is a newfound set standards of how I view like workplaces as well as environments that I want to be in personally. Being in spaces like the Ethnic Resource Center has definitely opened my eyes to how I would prefer to be in spaces where there is, more inclusion, like in the Ethnic Resource Centers compared to before, where as, being a BIPOC student, it is easy to kind of go into your shell and like just work your way through getting that degree. But I realized being in spaces like this, it definitely helped me find my own voice. I think we kind of talked about this in some of the other interviews within this podcast, but it helped me, advocate for myself in a larger way. And also, moving on in the future, that is definitely something that I will try and seek out more so.
Yeah, so in the fall, we do have a couple large events. We have La Bienvenida, which is like our welcome event. It's supposed to kind of like welcome in freshmen, basic, and also like it's open to all students, but like it's kind of like a welcome for freshmen and also an opportunity for continuing students to maybe interact with orgs they haven't had an opportunity to interact with yet. Because basically we're going to have orgs there and students can come in and talk to them. And I think it's a good opportunity for students who want to get involved in orgs and haven't yet. That's a good opportunity for them to get to know them and see if like any of them are a good fit for them. And then also we have our Dia de Muertos event. That is also one of our larger events. That is to come together as a community to collectively grieve and celebrate the lives of lost loved ones. And then also in like also like kind of like similar like with that event, we also have Calaveras y Comunidad, which is similar to like it's part of the same like week. It's just like a few days before, and it's kind of like supposed to be a similar idea. It's just that one is more like there's going to be more activities to do. But it also is supposed to celebrate Dia de Muertos. And yeah, actually Dia de Muertos was the first in-person event I went to, and like I really enjoyed it. So like now that we're planning that and having that for fall, it's actually really exciting.
For me, is to be able to like I said, come back to the country, come back to be a donor, to be able to. I'm applying to law school, and I'm going to apply to law school and try to see if I can get into a program that I could receive my doctorate at the same time. That's my hopes is to continue to advocate, to continue to fight for students, to continue to keep being a voice of the voiceless, because sometimes through all this, I through education, it's crazy to say, but through education, I found my voice, and that's my hope that the country continues to grow and be as a family and loving and caring as it is, and that the university really recognizes that these resource centers do a lot for marginalized communities, and even changing the language of saying, oh, marginalized or low income. I mean, I get it. We need that for paper trail, but to start changing the language and empower students. So that's one of my hopes, is to empower students, and by doing the action and the effort of making that a point.
Would you like to share any lasting thoughts for our listeners?
One major thing is, definitely go to the Ethnic Resource Center space. They are some of the most friendliest and like nicest folks that you will ever meet. Connect with them. It's a resource that I feel like more students are still, finding out about, which is good, but I hope more folks utilize the resources that they have. And on like more of a personal note, undergrad is a time for you to like kind of foster and develop the like young adult version of yourself. So don't take it too seriously because everything is like a learning experience. Definitely, prioritize your classes and everything, but I wouldn't personally, looking back, I realize I might have overstressed myself a little bit too much. But yeah.
One of the things I worked on last year was Black Grad. I don't know, it was just one of the more of my favorite events that we've done. Just a bunch of celebrating the seniors and seeing how it's grown over the years, when like viewing the senior pamphlet when it goes from 60 graduating seniors to 90 graduating, and just seeing the number grow is one of my more favorite things to do.
If you haven't visited the Women's Center, definitely come by and check out the space. It's super cozy and comforting. We have a lot of resources, a library, a pantry, just a lot of things to like use up and during your time at UCSC. And I know that the team would love to see y'all there, so definitely come by and check it out.
We do have an event coming up very soon that I'm helping in the leading process of it. So Beyonce's album is coming out in 2 days. And yes, and we are actually we don't have a set date yet, but we are working on creating a Beyonce listening party with like a feminist critique lens on it. Because although we all love Queen Bee, we have to remember that they're humans and they are capitalizing off of profit sometimes, and on showing different things and trying to relate to the lower middle class, as we kind of saw with her Break My Soul single. Because while it's a really good song, the message is kind of right message, wrong person to tell. So that's kind of what influenced us to really want to kind of do a deep dive, a feminist deep dive into it. And Bell Hooks, which I feel like a lot of us know who Bell Hooks is, actually did a really good critique on Beyonce's Lemonade in The Guardian. So I recommend, if you want to join the event, to definitely take a look at that reading, because it's kind of what we're centering it around. So yeah, that's a really cool event. Definitely going to be sometime in August. So really excited for that.
Learn how to advocate. I think that if anybody hears this out there, to remind themselves that you matter, that I have the right to be here, and I'm going to get, somebody's going to answer to what I need. I need an answer to whatever this is, and not be passed on, because that is something that these universities like doing, is passing you on either to website or go to this person. No, I need you to help me. That your voice, use your voice to uplift yourself and others, because that same voice helps others liberate themselves, especially people from the past, in order for us to move forward. Yell and scream, whatever you have to do to be heard. And that will open pathways through doors that, for me to even be thinking of going to law school, that happened because I spoke out in a conference. And yeah, to even say I'm going to be Dr. Alejandro, those are powerful. You use your words to empower, to just throw out to the universe, and you'll be sitting, and who knows, maybe you'll be sitting here talking next year.
So we host our annual events, which we'll be continuing with IndigiFest, and we're already planning IndigiThanks. This year for IndigiThanks, instead of having a speaker, I believe we're going to be doing dinner, which I'm excited about, food. So that'll be fun. We have a new director on board, and she is going to kind of have the ability to make changes if she wants to, and really put her vision in for the ARC. So I think there'll definitely be some changes in our programming this next year, which I'm really excited for, a fresh new idea. We had our collaboration with the Cantu Queer Center, and we did the alternative drag prom last year, or a couple months ago. And that was a pretty big success, I would say. And everybody who was involved is definitely interested in doing something similar again. So we're hoping to be able to collaborate with the Cantu again next year. And yeah, I think it's going to be a really exciting turning point for all of the resource centers, really just getting a fresh start and a fresh year of hopefully being entirely in person. And yeah, there's going to be a lot of fun things to look forward to. And even though I'm graduating, I still will be in attendance. So see you there.
And just like that, we've come to an end of our conversation. I want to extend another thank you to all of our guests for joining us in such a special episode, as well as extending a thank you to Yu Yao again, Cameron, Teresa, Kaz, and all of the directors and program coordinators, Autumn, Melissa, Gemzy, Benedicto, Delphine, Kai, Ziamata, Carlos, Maifua, and Stephanie for all of the work that they've been putting through behind the cameras in order to get this all together today. For more reading materials and the information about the events that we discussed today, check the links down below in the description. This year has truly been a renaissance, and I feel optimistic that everyone here at the Resource Centers have a newfound energy to take on this upcoming academic year. If you enjoyed listening to our conversation that we had today and would like to hear more, please feel free to subscribe to our channel and potentially other channels. Hint, hint. Thank you all so much. It has been a pleasure hosting this amazing podcast to all of y'all, and I wish you all a fantabulous future.
Right.
Woo!
Bye.
Okay, bye.